We're here with the Northern Knock, the podcast meant to bring a spotlight to the best of the best when it comes to Canadian door knockers. I'm your host, James Fraser, and we are here with arguably the number one door knocker in Canada right now, a good friend of mine. I've known this man since I've been on the doors of 2019. Yep. And none other than Arjun Manhas. How you doing today, man?
Dude, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's honestly such a pleasure. This is something that Canada's been needing for such a long time. So thank you for spearheading this and getting this going.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah, I figured you were actually a big inspiration when I started this podcast. We'll get into his stats, but this guy had probably the most nastiest summer that I've seen probably in history, whether it's Canada or America. And I thought that you weren't quite getting enough shine. So you're a huge inspiration just to be like, hey, there's a ton of talent up north. And I wanted to create a platform. I think door-to-door is blowing up. I think there's, tons of opportunity. Yep. So I just want to create a platform to bring, spotlight to you guys. So, yeah.
Dude, thank you. I mean, you know that I don't do this for recognition. It actually makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But I think that it's important that we do start highlighting top reps in this industry and start bringing more, uplifting this industry through showing people that, look, it's not just a summer job. This is a career that can make a really good living for you and your future family or your current family.
Yeah, 100%. We're here in Utah. So we've been all day over at the convention center at the Door-to-Door Con.
Yep.
How was the Door-to-Door Con for you?
Door-to-Door Con's always such a good experience. Only my second year being there, but yeah, it was amazing. Obviously, you get to go and rub shoulders with the best of the best. And then it was nice to just bring all the guys, not all, but we brought some guys from Canada. And it was nice to show them that this industry is not some small industry that we see in Canada. Because it's a little bit underdeveloped in Canada. It's nice to expand the vision and show everyone that this is a legitimate job. And there's a lot of people doing this at a really high level.
For sure. And check out the hardware. Fresh new trophies. Yep. There you go. Not one, but two. Double golden door winner. Here we are. Let's get into
two
the
golden
numbers.
Doors, not a double golden door.
Right. Two golden doors. Yes. One in 2021.
2023.
One in 2023. Let's get into the numbers. Okay. Let's talk to you about who we're dealing with here. Okay. Let's go through the years. 2017, Arjun did 45 accounts. Okay. 2018, 60 accounts.
Yep.
Okay. And 2019, 100 accounts.
Yeah, right around there.
Something happened. Something came into your water. I don't know what went on, but in 2021, you jumped significantly to 432 accounts in 2021.
Yeah, you missed 2020. So 2020, I did 220-ish accounts. I don't remember the exact number, but it's right around there.
Insane.
And then 2021 was the jump.
Okay. Yeah. So that jump makes a little bit more sense then. Okay. And then 2022, you did 333 accounts.
Yep.
While also doing 350 FFH and 100 mobility.
Give or take. Yep.
Crazy. So you did all three of those numbers combined. In 2023, this last year, 604 alarms installed.
Yeah.
Mic drop. Insane.
Yeah, it was a good year, to say the least.
604 alarms installed. To my knowledge, that is the best in the world. Canada or America.
Yes, in 2023, I finished number one in the industry.
Absolutely insane. Along with that, you also did 232 FFH.
Yep.
And 59 mobility.
Yep.
Insane. Also, just some key stats to go over. Your biggest day was 16 accounts.
Yep.
Your biggest week was 63 accounts. And your biggest month was 152 accounts. But now we know who we're dealing with, right? We got all our cards on the table. Let's dissect how you did this. Let's start with the meats and potatoes. The 604 alarms this summer. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about the summer. Just talk to us about how you were even capable of doing that.
Okay, well, it depends on where we're coming at, what angle we're coming from where you ask this question. If it's from the difference from my first year to my 7th year, then obviously that's going to be a different answer. But if it's from 2022 to 2023, so what angle do you want me to come at this from?
Yeah, I mean, it was such a drastic jump for you. In 2022, you did 333 accounts.
Yep.
And then in 2022, you did 333 accounts. In 2023, you nearly doubled that, 604 accounts. So what happened from the end of 2022 to the start of the season in 2023?
Yeah, really easy answer for me. So there was two things that I did differently from 2022 to 2023. Number one was I got a mentor coming into 2023 right at the beginning of the year. And that's what I say my golden door was earned. So I truly believe that my golden door was earned between the months of, I think it was January 15th, give or take, into obviously starting the season at the beginning of May. Because what I did differently in those, 4.5 months, was I really, and shout out to my mentor, Brandon Holmes, he helped a ton with this, was we really developed the mindset and developed, because what I always say is if you want to do something you've never done, or you want to get somewhere you've never gone, you have to do things that you haven't done before, right? So what I had to do that year was I had to really dial in my mindset and level up as a human. And a lot of it was cutting out bad habits too, which I'll get into in a second. But it was following a strict routine, right? So from January to May, this is one thing that Brandon's big on. It's called the General's Tent, and it's called SEMS. So what I did was I started working on all these different pillars of my life, right? It was everything from spiritual to emotional to mental to physical, and then there was a social aspect as well. And this was a morning routine that took me roughly 3.5 hours every single day before I started my day, right? And it was everything from getting spiritual, which is new for me. I'm not religious, and it was really nice to, I don't know, I'm still new to the whole spirituality and thing, but it was really nice to start looking at things from a more holistic point of view. And I think that one thing we always fall into a trap, especially as a door-to-door rep, and especially when you start achieving in this industry, is you think that everything starts and stops with you. That you know that we can, and there's truth to that, but I think that like the universe, and this is my spiritual side talking now, right? I think there's things that go on in the universe and in life that we can't control, and things happen to us or against us, and there's other plays, other forces at work, if that makes sense, right? So what that did was it took a lot of the pressure off me, because I just had come from a position of, look, if I do X, I'm going to be able to get Y, if that makes sense. And that was the spiritual aspect. The emotional aspect was really getting dialed in on who I am and what I want out of my life, which is something that's been an ongoing progression, and that's something that's going to be ongoing for the rest of my life. So I really dialed in what my goals were, and I really dialed in like things like gratitude. You know, so I started waking up with a lot more gratitude every single morning. I would write out the things that I was grateful for every single morning, and I would write out my goals every single morning for months and months and months. And then I would start asking myself questions, and shout out to Casey Ball for this, but who am I? What excites me? And what are my opportunities? And I would do that sometimes every day, but it would be a couple times a week kind of deal. And doing that in the morning, it helped align me, and it helped make my day-to-day activities a lot easier, because I knew what I needed to achieve, if that makes sense. The mental aspect of that was just learning, right? So keeping your learning ahead of your earning. I always say readers are learners and learners are earners. So being able to just really just take in knowledge and develop either sales skills or leadership skills or mindset or whatever it was at that point in time, what book I was reading, that helped a lot coming into the season as well, kept my brain sharp. Physical, I mean, I think that every single door-to-door rep ever has talked about having some sort of physical, high-producing door-to-door rep has talked about having some sort of physical pillar within your life. So I've always been serious in the gym, but the one thing is it's always lacked when I was in the summer. So since I was about 15 years old, I've been working out, but I would always take the summer off, which is really crazy and counterintuitive to the progress you want to make on that side of things. So I kept that consistent throughout the summer season, which was huge. And then the social aspect, and that doesn't really relate to the doors, but it was creating meaningful relationships. I have to do that every single day, right? Reconnect with old friends, with the newer reps that we hired, get to know them better, make any connection that I had. It was anywhere from 3 to 5 a day, make it meaningful. So what that did, it kind of backpack on the gratitude, right? Just moving through life was a lot easier, and you felt more fulfilled and whole, right, as the year went on. So that was number one. The second thing is, and it's a little bit personal to me, and it's kind of makes me a little bit uncomfortable talking about, but I think it's really important, was I cut out all substances and I cut out all alcohol, right? So I had a dry season, and that's something that I've struggled with over my career, and it was never like over the deep end kind of thing, but being able to wake up on Monday morning with clarity and being able to start my day with momentum at the beginning of the week in and week out, made the world of a difference. And then on backpacking on that too, then you have your Sundays to actually relax and enjoy when you're not living for Saturdays. So I would say those are the two things that was a big difference from 2022 coming to 2023.
Wow. Lot to unpack there. If you're listening to this, right, hopefully just by that little monologue, you understand that this guy is the real deal, right? This guy's not just getting the best turf, right? The guy's not just out there, saying the best lines. This guy is actually working on himself, and it breeds results clearly.
Yeah.
So, I've had the pleasure to go to a couple conferences before, Door to Door Con, or at least just one, and just listening to all the best speakers, Casey Baugh, Jeff Mendez, Doug Cartwright. The overarching theme was working on different pillars in your life, which is kind of what you're talking about, right?
Totally.
Physical, mental, spiritual. And just to kind of summarize what you're saying, right? The general's tent, what's the analogy there? It's essentially,
the wars are won in the general's tent, right? So it's basically saying, and I don't want to butcher this analogy, but I know that there was a general back in the day named General Lee, and he was just one of the best war generals ever. And he would always say that, it comes down to preparation, right? Wars are won in the general's tent. They're not won out in the battlefield. And the overarching theme around that is just preparation, right? That's
totally.
kind of it.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I hope you don't mind me saying, but I remember, just so you guys know, me and Arjun, we've been working for a while.
Yeah, we're good friends.
So I did my first year of sales with Arjun in 2019 Vivint.
Yeah, good times.
And Arjun taught me a lot. A lot of my, sales skills and success have come from you.
Thank you.
I honestly think if I didn't work with like you, your brother, Jason, I probably wouldn't be in the industry today, right? So, but a couple things to unpack there. Number one, I just want to talk about, when you invested in yourself, because I remember when you said that you were going to invest over 6 figures, right?
Yeah.
And I told you afterwards, once you started to succeed, I was like, everyone's talking like you're crazy, right? Like 6 figures you're going to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
And up until that point, correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't really invest too much into yourself. Not at least up to that margin.
No, not like into mentorship and coaching and stuff. Obviously, there's little investments in like books and that kind of stuff. But
Sure.
no, it was just the typical
average
rep investment before that.
Right. So what do you say? Like for myself personally, I think most reps, if not 90% plus of them, struggle with investing in themselves personally. Maybe they go out for the summer, they make, $30K, $50K, $100K. And you want to put it into the stock market. You want to buy that real estate.
Yeah.
And you don't really have, the discipline to say, hey, let me take a portion of this and invest in myself. What do you say to those people?
And I mean, that's a really, really good question. And I think there's a lot of like you got to understand where those people are coming from, right? You don't know what you don't know, right? So one thing that my mentors taught me, and one thing that a lot of successful people, I have a lot of success in my family too, so I've learned these lessons from them, but very few people get wealthy and then keep it, right? It's very common that at some point in time, you're going to make a bad investment or a bad business decision or go into business with the wrong person or whatever it may be, and you might lose your money. A lot of people have. So the important part about investing in yourself is that the stuff, like when you invest in yourself, what you learn through whatever method or avenue of investing in yourself that's who you become, right? So when you're learning all these new things, that can never be taken away from you, like your money can, and the temporary things that come along with success and with winning and with making money, right? So I would say if you make less than $250,000 a year, you should be prioritizing pretty much all of your money into investing in yourself, because investing and that doesn't say to don't be investing into the stock market and into whatever other avenues of investments you want to do to create long-term financial wealth. But if you make less than 250, I truly believe that putting your money into yourself, and Patrick Bet-David talks a lot about this. He says that when you invest into yourself, you're going to get a 5x return every single time. And I mean, it's almost impossible to measure that, right? But if you're making less than that number, and that's my number in my head, I'm sure everyone's going to have a different number, is that when you put that money into yourself, you're going to be able to get yourself to that 250, 300, right? If you're making 50, 60, 100, even 150, it's rare that with how expensive like life is nowadays, especially up in Canada, that you're going to be able to invest a large enough portion of that money to really move the needle in your life, if that makes sense financially, right? So if you can be disciplined enough and think long-term enough in order to invest in yourself, and again, everyone's piece of the puzzle is going to be different. So when you're seeking a mentor, seeking a coach, or finding some form of investing in yourself, you need to figure out like what piece of the puzzle you need to solve, and then you need to find someone who can solve that piece of the puzzle for you, right? What worked for me might not work for you, James. Probably wouldn't. It'd probably be different, right? And so on and so forth. So yeah, I would say to those people, if you make less than 250, you're around that 75, 50 to 150 mark, really prioritize investing in yourself. Go find out what you don't know, right? And then you're going to be able to get yourself to that mark of 250, 300, 500K, hopefully $1 million. And when you get to that mark, then you can start taking your money and putting it into avenues to create financial wealth. And it's really going to start moving the needle in your life. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So you hear that? Sell those stocks. Sell a little bit of that crypto. A little bit of it aside. And invest in yourself. I can personally say every single time I've invested in myself, I've never regretted it.
Yep.
Not once.
I agree.
Right?
Yep.
And even these conferences that we go to, like, I love them so much. I don't know about you, but something about being in the room, right? Being in the room, being immersed, listening to people and just not having any distractions. You just take so much away out of it. You get to unplug for a little bit. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I see a huge benefit. Now, another thing I want to talk about that you said was you're drinking, going dry.
Yep.
So I went dry as well this summer. Game
Nice.
changer.
Yeah.
We come from, when we worked together in 2019, we used to get after it on Saturdays.
We lived for them.
We were an absolute party office,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of all I knew with summer sales, right? You work all week, right? You maybe crush a couple drinks during the week after long days with the pals. And Saturday comes around and we would get right after it, right? We just made great money, right? And
Yep.
yeah, you're right. Monday would come along and it would always be our slowest days, right?
Sometimes non-existent.
Totally. And essentially I feel like we were almost drinking away our goals, right? We'd have these big goals, but I personally think if you have big goals, right, you have no business drinking during the summer. It just messes you up.
I couldn't agree more. Yep.
So just talk a little bit about, the benefits that you saw with your team as well when you stopped drinking.
Yeah, dude, I love that. It's such a good question. And we had a very young team this year. So like everyone, and when I say we, it's my twin brother and I think everyone was under the age of like 22 on our team. And at the beginning of the season, they're all young. They're excited. They were drinking, right? They haven't spent much time around us. They were just meeting us and we were getting to know each other. And we were building that trust with our team again, right? You have to do that every single year. You hire new reps. And it's crazy because we look back. Me and my twin brother were talking about this not long ago. Actually, we look back at how the season went, and around like probably a month into the season, we started noticing that like slowly the guys weren't drinking as much, and they were were more excited to go and like enjoy their Sundays and this and that. And then probably by about halfway through the season, I'd say it didn't happen overnight, right? It took a little bit of time. But they pretty much stopped drinking altogether too, right? And it follows the principle of lead from the front, right? We weren't drinking. We were trying to instill, let's go enjoy our Sundays and let's have the time to like unplug, right? And recharge the battery on Sundays. And that trickled right down into the team. And then the success we had like throughout the season was the most successful season we had by far. So we had a small team this year because up in Canada where we have head count restrictions, right? So we only had about 12, 13 guys on the team, I believe. And we did over 2,100 alarms with pretty much the majority of them being rookies. We had 103 or 105 alarm PRA across the rookies. And everyone, I think the lowest earner on the team was 50 grand as far as rookies go. So looking at previous years, just a massive difference. And it was literally from the absence of partying.
Amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I love that. I love the concept too of how leading from the front, a lot of people just think that's production based.
Yep.
It applies to everything.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. Hopefully I'm not beating around the bush because we got to get into it. 604 accounts. Talk to us about the summer routine. What was a day in the life? What were you doing? How many accounts were you trying to sell per day? Talk to us.
Yeah.
Let's get tactical.
Yeah, I love it. Day in the life, simple. That's one of the things that I like about this job is that you can create your routine however you want and whatever works for you. And I think that everybody should do what works for them. What worked for me was I would get up anywhere about 6:30 to 7. I was always up before 7. Sometimes I was up as early as 6. And right when I got up, I would wake up and I would do that general's tent stuff, right? So I would quickly do some spiritual work. I would get into my emotional. So I would journal, do my gratitude, do my goals. Then I would quickly dart out to the gym. We'd go get a workout in for an hour or so, get back. Now it's maybe anywhere between like 7:30 and 8:30, depending on what time I woke up, if it was at 6 or 7, right? Then we'd get back, get ready, go eat breakfast. We'd have our meetings around 11 a.m. every single day. So we'd get breakfast, eat food, prepare the slideshow, and just do some of that management stuff, that management work that you need to do in the morning. Go run the meeting, get all the guys out on the doors. Meeting would go for about an hour, hour and a half. Sometimes we get a little bit excited in the meetings, and me and my brother can rant on a bit. So they would go for an hour, hour and a half. We get the guys out into turf right around 1 o'clock. So normal door knocking hours. And then we would go all the way until 9:30. So typical schedule as far as Monday to Friday goes in the average door knocking world. And then Saturdays, one of my biggest keys to success for sure over my career, 9 a.m. meeting, no gym, no general's tent on Saturdays. Saturdays are for sales, period. And if you want to get a golden door, that's like, it's mandatory that you take advantage of Saturdays to the fullest. So wake up, breakfast, meeting, high energy, getting all the guys fired up, quick meeting, get out on the doors. And I would work personally with no breaks throughout the whole day. Sometimes I'd have a quick lunch, 20-minute lunch, 15-minute lunch, that's it. Work till 9:30, and then go home.
Wow. Yeah. No, I love that. You said that today on the panel too. You said Saturdays are so key.
So key.
Totally. So let's add on to that. You know, you are one of the most competitive guys when it comes to sales competitions.
Yeah.
Ever since I've been on your team or known about you, you're always winning competitions and dominating them.
Yeah.
And you have the ability to turn it on when it's competition time.
Yeah.
Something I admire in you. When it's time, when the lights are on and the company's watching, you turn it on and you go above and beyond. Your best day, 16, correct me if I'm wrong, was that competition inspired, or what was that? Was that just a normal Saturday?
Best day. Crazy thing is, I don't even remember that day.
Too bad, because I was going to ask, what the heck happened that day? 16 alarms. That's got to be, close to one of the best. 16,
right? I remember that day. Now that was in 2022, actually. So I had a shadow. One of my close friends now. We had known each other for 3 or 4 months at the time. He was one of our newer reps, and he was doing pretty well. And I just, sometimes things work out, right? Sometimes you just have that feeling in the air. And I try my best to listen to my intuition. It's something people don't talk about much, but I could just feel that this was going to be a good Saturday. And I don't sell less than 10 on a Saturday to begin with anyways, but I knew that this was going to be a good day. So I brought him out shadowing. He was struggling a little bit, the come with me leadership. I was like, come with me and watch me do it, right? And took him out, sold my first door, sold my second door, sold my third door, sold my fourth door. I think I got a referral from that fourth door somewhere in there. Sold them. I think I got a referral from them too. Sold them, and then went back into the area. And I think I got 1 or 2 no's that day. It was just sale.
Unreal. So you had a shadow with you the whole time.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, I love that he got to experience that and see that.
Please tell us he's still with us today, or at least he tried the job.
He's still in the industry for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we sent him over to a different company to go do some solar stuff.
I have a story where I took a shadow out. I sold 4 doors, and then headed home. It was like winter time, and it never came out. I was like, oh my God, what more can you do?
You can't win them all. That's okay.
Yeah, no, but that's amazing. But talk to us about competition. So how does competition inspire you? What's your mindset like in competition? Where does the desire to become the best come from? How do you get yourself up for competition when the lights are on?
I love that. I always say that I work best under pressure. But I've been trying to analyze that for a lot of years, like where that competitive spirit comes from. And I think it's from a few different places. My father was pretty hard on me when we were young in sports, right? It was never good enough. And that put chips on my shoulders as far as proving my family right? I want to prove them that I can succeed at the highest level. Backpacking on that, I quit sports at an early age, started getting into some bad things, hanging out with the wrong people, like pretty early on in high school too. And I was a pretty good athlete, I like to think. And I quit sports. So I always said that coming back into sales was my second chance to be great in a competitive environment. Because I believe I would have been a great athlete. I would have for sure played in university at whatever I did. But that was a big one for me. And then growing up where I grew up, I grew up in northern Canada, in BC, in Prince George, for those of you who know where I'm talking about. And it's a very redneck community, right? Like I didn't have a colored friend until I was in university, if that tells you anything. So I experienced a lot of racism when I was young, and I experienced a lot of people writing me off. And I think that was like one of the biggest driving forces. I've just always wanted to prove those people wrong, and I've stacked those chips. I've kept those receipts, right? And that drives me a lot. So when it's time to shine and it's time to go out there and like turn it on, I think about those kind of things. And then more so, like after all of that, that's the personal stuff, right? Like the inner stuff inside of me. But then there's the guys, right? Like there's nothing more important than leading from the front for your guys. And there's no better time to do it than in competition, when it matters most, right? And I think that if you can buy into competition in this industry, you have a really good chance at doing something great. If you're not competitive in this industry, I don't believe you can do big numbers in this industry if you're not competitive. That's a personal opinion. If someone can prove me wrong, please prove me wrong. But if there's a culture of complacency or a level of complacency within you where you just, I'll just chalk it up today and he can have this one today and I'll come do it next time. Mm-hmm. Well, next time might never come around, right? This might be your time to prove yourself so that you get a second opportunity. Totally. So I believe that all of those things, but leading from the front for the team, the stuff that I experienced when I was young, and then just buying into competition is just a big key to success in this industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the motivation coming from your guys as a manager is super strong.
Yeah.
Right? Super strong. And one thing I've noticed, with you is obviously 600 alarms. That is leading from the front production-wise heavy, right? And I think a lot of managers don't understand where if you can just lead from the front in production, it makes everything else about managing easy.
Oh, for sure.
Right? A lot of managers think, I have to show empathy. I have to give training. I have to do all of these things, right? But at the end of the day, as long as you're able to go out there, hustle and show how the job's done, that's the best training that there is, right? Inevitably, they're going to get their sales up. Right?
Absolutely.
And one thing I knew, like we're here at the Airbnb with all of your guys, right? And, they're not going anywhere. They're retained properly, right? And the reason why is because they want to be managed and they want to be surrounded by the best, right? So, just talk to me a little bit about how your example of leading from the front, selling big numbers day in, day out has translated to, just your team environment overall and your retaining and recruiting.
Love that. There's so many thoughts that are coming to my head right now. One thing would be that I always say managing is really hard when you don't sell. Managing gets way more difficult when you're not leading from the front, right? When you lead from the front and you can show your guys and inspire them and have influence through your production and through your actions, then everything gets a lot easier, right? And I think one thing that we forget is that when people come into this industry, they come for pretty much one, maybe two reasons. They're obviously here to learn skills, but it's to make money. That's why people come here. They're not here to make a best friend. Sure, that's a bonus, right? But I always tell my guys, you might hate me now, but you will love me later, because I set boundaries, and I have boundaries that are consistent as far as when I'm on the doors, don't call me. I won't answer your phone call, right? And then if it's something that's serious, text me. And if you call me like 2 or 3 times, then I know it's serious and I'll get back to you, right? And I tell them that. I have clear boundaries from this time to this time. Just don't bug me. And I explain why, right? As a manager, you always have to give reasons for everything. So I'll explain why. And like the reason why I'm doing this, guys, is because if you don't see me do this, how are you going to believe that it's possible, right? Because leadership is influence. So backpacking on that for me to be an effective leader, and this is probably a personal insecurity, to be honest, but I never thought that I could be an effective leader with only having like 100 account summers or even 200 account summers, to be honest. Like I almost felt like an imposter sitting up there telling people what to do when I was like average, maybe good at best, right? What gave me, and there's an insecurity there for sure, right? But what gave me the confidence to lead my guys was when I had a resume of undeniable wins and I had stack of proof that I am who I say I am and I can do what I can, and I can do what I've said I've done, then I can show you this. That's what gave me the confidence as a leader to not only just sell it. This had nothing to do with sales. That gave me the confidence as a leader to go out and actually effectively lead people.
One thing that you mentioned was that you don't want to, necessarily, or you had a little bit of hesitation about recruiting when it came down to being a 100 account rep or less, or maybe a little bit more, right? Here's an interesting take that I actually just got from Seeger, and I want to know your thoughts on it. So I explained to Seeger my situation. I said, hey, I've been managing a team. This next summer, I'm planning to branch that into 3 teams, right? And he asked, how many guys you got. So we're planning on having about 100 on the doors. Yep. And what he said was, don't branch into 3, branch into 2, and have a massive office. I kind of pushed back a little bit like, hey, well, 50 people in the office, couldn't that get crazy? He said, cut the bad apples, but understand that it's way better for your young leaders to be surrounded by just that proximity level of high hitters. Yep. They're going to have a better experience selling. They're going to sell more. And then when they're absolutely ready, that's when you branch them off. I thought that was super interesting.
I love that.
Yeah, because I thought that was super interesting because we always talk about, hey, let's just branch as quick as we can. But really, what are we doing? Because you just mentioned the worst thing about being a manager is when you don't sell. Totally. Like if you don't sell as a manager, I've been there a couple times, brutal, right? So we're kind of pushing, managers into being in that situations that leads to drop off. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that. I thought that was super interesting.
Honestly, I could not agree more with what Seeger said there. And I think that's one thing that's got a little bit problematic in this industry is everyone's so focused on like growth. And it's so important in this industry, right? To grow and anywhere in life. You want to be progressing consistently and growing all the time. But I think that a lot of people in this industry, and I've seen it countless times, I'm not going to give examples or anything, but I've seen it countless times where they push people into management way too quick. And what you did was you actually ruined that rep's experience to ever be a top producer. Like almost ever. I've never seen reps that were pushed into management too quick actually go out and now go achieve the success they could have. And I could think of like 3 or 4 people right now that I know could have been Golden Door winners, but they were pushed into management too quick. Or them themselves rushed the process too quick. And honestly, what that tells me is they're looking to collect checks, right? If you're just rushing into management to go out and to make more money, your first couple of years managing, like if you just sell more, you're probably going to earn the same anyways, in my opinion. There might be a plus or minus of 20%, like with a deviation there. But I agree with Seeger wholeheartedly. I think that making sure that your leaders are top performers, they've developed the qualities to go manage and lead, and you'll know when the time's right? Like it goes back to what I was saying earlier about listening to your intuition, but that's not even an intuition thing. There might be parts of intuition, but you'll see the results and you'll see the people, and when they're ready, it's pretty clear, cut and day. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. No, I love that. Okay, let's transition a little bit. One thing about you, that I've noticed is when you are on your come up, right? You say a lot that you took training seriously, right? I think one thing that you did different than anyone else in our office was you just took the training a lot more seriously than everybody else, right? So can you just talk a little bit about that in terms of, how important you would say training is when you first get into this industry?
It's the most important. And I don't want to take the credit for my level of development at the beginning. I'm going to give all of that credit to my twin brother. I do not love training. Like I don't. And I'm going to be honest, but that doesn't matter. Like you can't, that's an emotion attached to a thing, right? If you want to do anything in life at the highest level, you have to operate without those kind of emotions that are just going to pull you back, right? So big shout out to my brother. He's the biggest learner that I've ever met, and he finds true joy and true passion in it. And he is the biggest reason, hands down, to why I know what I know. And I've always said he is far more technical than I am. Like if you ask technical language, this and that, he will give you better answers than I will because he's learned so much. And obviously a lot of that has trickled down onto me. So that just tells you how important proximity is and the people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? A lot of people don't know, but Arjun has a twin brother, Rohan. And Rohan is just as good, right, at sales. Oh, yeah. The guy did 550 installs this year. Yeah. 2023, yeah. So this guy did 600. His twin brother did 550. So these are obviously two very talented twins. So just talk to us about the nitty gritty of what it was like, coming up in the sales world with such an elite, kinship with your brother. What did you guys actually do to get better together?
Yeah, man. Yeah, having a twin is my superpower for sure. It's the X factor that has made everything in my life easier and excelled me past points that I didn't think I could hit. But as far as like the nitty gritty thing, when we first started out back in 2017, we were quite introverted and we were quite like nervous. I think as a lot of rookies are coming into the industry. So what we did was we took training so seriously, and we would do role play. Like it got to the point where like my head was hurting with how much I did that. We practiced the pitch and smoke screens and overcoming objections and all the basic stuff you need to do when you're learning out this job. And it got to the point where like I'd be in the shower, for example, and he's brushing his teeth over the sink. And, he's yelling out smoke screens to me, and I'm giving him responses back, and we're practicing our pitch back and forth. And, like, even on the way out to area, we're getting out 3, 5, 7 pitches or whatever, shaking off the rust a little bit, getting the word tracks down, making sure that we feel dialed and instilling some confidence in ourselves before we go knock the first door. So, yeah, we just did everything that we possibly could in order to just speed up the learning curve, right? Because there's a steep learning curve in door-to-door. And having him to help push me because he's such a learner, it helped a lot. Like there was a lot of times in my life, or not life, I guess, but in my life, but more so we were learning sales, that I just didn't want to train. I was like, okay, this is enough. We're good for the day. And he'd be like, no, we're going to keep practicing. And obviously that had helped excel us quite a bit, and it paid a lot of dividends going forward.
Yeah, you told me once, your secret weapon is your brother.
For sure.
Because you guys hold each other accountable. Right?
To an extreme level, yeah.
And there's something so important about that, right? Having an accountability partner, right? And especially you guys, like it must have been such a strong, thing to go through when you go out there and you sell 8 and then he sells 3, right? Like what were those conversations like where one of you guys outperformed the other and you guys would, come together at night? Talk us through that.
I got to be careful what I say here. So, it's tough, man. Like, it's tough. We're both very, very competitive individuals, especially with each other, and it can get a little unhealthy. And that's the twinship too, right? That's not just the competition. That's the twinship, right? But yeah, the conversations were sometimes they were anger, and sometimes they were resentment, and sometimes there was those emotions that we don't want to feel, but that stacks chips, right? That fuels the fire, and it's the propane in the fire, right? And I don't think without us having that level of accountability to each other and having such I guess such an extreme competitive spirit with each other, where we just there'd be nothing more than we want than to outperform each other, right? And that alone, it just pushed us so much. So yeah, my advice always to reps is find an accountability partner, because I know it's been a superpower for me, and I know it can be a superpower for others if you have the right person.
I love that.
And that can be a spouse and, your manager, your leaders, whatever, right? It doesn't need to just be a friend. There's multiple different ways you can find those accountability partners.
Yeah, essentially, a twin in sales is just an extreme accountability partner.
That's all it is. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, absolutely. Find your twin. Find someone out there that's just as ambitious with you in the office, right? That just has just as high as goals of you, and create a little brotherhood, right? Hold each other accountable. I love that. Okay, gonna get tactical with you a little bit, because I have a story with you. I in 2020, right? I was just kind of coming back into the doors, just with the pandemic. I didn't knock through the heat of it, and I got to shadow you,
right?
And we were doing our thing, and then you hadn't made a sale in like an hour, and you were like, oh, this usually never happens. But then sure enough, you came across a customer, and if it was me, I wouldn't have sold it. I would have walked away, because the customer seemed uninterested. The customer, wasn't too keen. They gave you a few objections, and you simply overcame those objections, and you got inside the house, and wouldn't you know, he actually was interested, and you made that sale. I think one thing that all reps, ask, and I want to know your take on this, is, what's your kind of strategy in terms of when to stop, when to keep pushing? Because obviously you don't lay down easy, right? You don't hear no and walk away.
Yeah.
You hang around, you get through a couple smoke screens, and then with you, right, you're very good at overcoming objections, and I love your philosophy on it. So just talk a little bit about that. You know, when do you keep pushing? When do you pull back? And how do you handle objections usually?
The way that I look at it on the doors is like we're going out to war, right? So we got to be out there as hunters, not gatherers. So I mean, especially when I was new, like I would push people pretty far, right? Like you don't know the limits and the boundaries and what you can and can't do until you test the waters a little bit. So I'd always definitely encourage reps to go out there and test the boundaries a little bit, push hard. You will lose some sales, but you're going to gain far more, and you're going to do people a better service, right? As far as objections, I mean, the best way to handle objections is always bring them up first. That usually comes with experience. You have to start reading situations, start knowing customers and personality types and all of that. And then you start seeing similarities from a past scenario to this scenario, and you can kind of understand that, okay, this might come up, so you'll cover that beforehand. But yeah, you know, objections, it's mandatory to become a master at overcoming objections if you want to have a shot at being good in this industry. And I think that's one place, like on the pitch and with objections, that so many reps spend so much of their energy trying to find like the secret sauce and the secret lines and the one-liner to answer this. It doesn't matter. There's none. I've found that with every top producer, like they do things, the principles are going to be the same, but oftentimes like word tracks and this and that, they can be wildly different, but the results can be the same because of their mindset, because of their belief, their conviction in themselves, in their product, in their company, right? Because of their goals and their vision and what they want to achieve. So I think I know that stuff is far more important than the actual word tracks to an objection or to a door approach, right? And sales is not about what you say, it's about how you say it.
Right. So mastering objections, obviously super important, but
it's a mandatory, right? But if you want to get good at sales, you're going to do that anyways. And your leaders and your managers will give you responses to objections. And if not, that's the awesome thing about it being 2024 now, is there's so many resources for the door-to-door world that we didn't have even when I started a short 8 years ago now, right? So it's all out there for you to find. It's just going out, implementing that, being able to become a master at actually doing these things on the fly. And then, yeah, it's just mastering the mind.
Totally. Okay, let's stay on the tactical tip.
Okay.
There was something that you said here at the conference. You gave a really applicable tip about gaining momentum early in your day. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things, like I kind of want to like debunk a myth here, I guess, a little bit, right? One of the things that I've heard from so many reps over the years, and I've been victim to this early on in my career as well, is that you want to save your good looks, right? You want to save them for the end of the day. And I don't like the word good look because it implies that there's such thing as bad area and good area. A good look is a perceived good look, right? And who those listening to this podcast, if you knock doors, you know what I mean. So what my key and one of my secrets is I go like right when I get into area, those are the doors that I go to first, and I'm doing quotations here, are my perceived good looks. Reason why is because you're more confident approaching those doors. You have a better feeling about them. Your intuition is telling you these are sales. So oftentimes you're going to present yourself in a manner that's going to be a lot more conducive to closing a sale opposed to a customer than, again, on quotations that you don't think is a good look. So one of my keys to gaining momentum is right when I get dropped off an area, or, you know, I'm taking myself to area obviously for the last several years, but right when I get into area, I'll go straight to those good looks, and I try to sell anywhere from my first to my third door. And it happens very often. I don't get my first door all the time, but usually one of my first 3 doors I'll sell almost every day. And then that just creates the momentum early on, and then the domino effect, right? Then you're feeling fired up. Everyone in sales knows the best time to sell is after you sell. So you can carry that confidence and that momentum forward, and then it just compounds significantly. So that's a huge one. And then second, walk quick while you're out there.
So just to preface, Arjun is famous for being the fastest walker in between doors. I personally haven't seen too much of it, but from all the guys that have shadowed him, he is an absolute lightning bolt. Anything like you've ever seen. So talk about it.
Yeah, I actually have no idea where that trait came from. And, you know, I'm not the tallest of guys. I'm 5'10" on a good day. But I don't have the longest legs either. But, yeah, I move quick between doors, and I don't know how. I have reps literally just jogging beside me while I'm knocking, right? I don't take a segue. I just walk. But time is one of the only things that we can control while we're out there, right? There's a lot of uncontrollables in the day. There's a few things we can't control. One of those things is time. So it's just to me, it was just common sense that, hey, look, if I can save some time in between each door, save time and do that day in, week in, month in, summer over summer, year over year, it'll add up to a lot more extra production, and it has.
I love that. So there you go. 2 practical tips for you, right? Go to your good looks first, get that momentum under your belt, right? Take that energy onto other doors and walk quickly in between doors, right? Time is money. Time is money.
And backpacking on that, go to your good looks first. We all know that the hardest door is the car door. Mm-hmm. So knowing that you're going to approach a couple doors that you feel comfortable with, that you feel excited with, that you feel that you can close right off the bat, whether you do or don't, that is so not the point either. It gets you out of the car door and it gets you into your area, and then you just start rocking and rolling.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Okay, cool. So let's try to land this thing. Right? All right. I just want to thank you so much. Starting this podcast, there is no more fitting guest than you, right? Again, you kind of inspired me to start this whole thing, right? You selling 600 accounts, your brother selling 550, a ton of other talented salespeople that just quite aren't getting, the spotlight that they deserve. You guys need to understand how difficult, these numbers are, right? And only the 1% of the 1% can hit these numbers. So truly a blessing to have you on. Thank you for all of your tips. A great friend of mine as well. So
yep.
I'm sure we'll be seeing lots more of you on the podcast, hopefully.
I'd love to, yeah.
And just want to ask you kind of a parting question.
Sure.
So when it comes to, Canadian door-to-door sales, right,
yep.
Where do you think the potential is? Where do you think the opportunity is? Where do you think it's heading?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's really weird. I think that the door-to-door space in Canada is almost more underdeveloped than when I first started, in a sense, because the company was bigger that I started with. There was more regions and more offices. I think the door-to-door space in Canada especially, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and better. The money is going to get greater. The opportunities are growing at a pace I've never seen. There's so much opportunity in Canada right now for any field and door-to-door. And I think it's growing as more of an honorable and respectable job, too, within Canada, which is really special. And that's part of why I want to do things like get on these podcasts. And any way that I can help uplift and support the Canadian door-to-door industry, right, has changed my life forever, unexpectedly, which I'm beyond grateful for. And I know it can do the same to many others, as it has, and it will continue to. But I think it's heading in a really positive direction, no matter what industry you're in. I've heard people say alarms are dead for years. Couldn't be further from the truth. I think the door-to-door space in Canada is heading in a really, really positive direction. I'm really excited for what the future has to hold.
Right on, man. Right on. And as a pioneer, right, to heavy-hitting sales in Canada, what is your message to the door-to-door industry? Aspiring reps trying to get to that next level.
Get around the right people. I think it's of the utmost importance that you get the right resources so that you have the tools that you need to succeed. Once you have those resources, make sure that you utilize every last bit of them and implement until it becomes second nature. And then the third piece is, do the extra, right? Be the person who shows up earlier, be the person who stays late, and be the person who blooms where their feet are planted, right? So what I mean by that is be present. When you're out there, when you're training, train with intention and with purpose. And when you're working, work with intention and purpose. Be where your feet are. And I think that's one thing that's understated, or not, maybe not understated, but not talked enough about. And I think that when you're intentional about your actions and you're intentional about everything from your training to the way you handle yourself in your meetings and around your teams and around your coworkers and then out there in the field with customers and so on and so forth, life just starts to work in a way where you start getting what you're asking for, right? To recap on that, I would say get in proximity with the right people, the right environments, get the right resources. Once you have those, implement and utilize to the fullest until it becomes second nature. And then third off, do the extra, right? Bloom where your feet are planted.
Love that, man. Love that. All right. Well, that's it. Episode number 1, Northern Knock Podcast in the books. Thank you so much, my man.
It's an honor. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you, Arjun Manhas. That's a wrap. Take care, guys.
Beauty.